All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. So we're going to talk about Francis Ngannou in the UFC again. We haven't talked about this in a little while, but there's a lot of notable stuff here. Someone reached out to me yesterday and asked me a question, and I realized, I was like, have I not made that clear on my channel? And I actually realized I don't think I had. And that has to do with the UFC's ability to strip Francis of the title, or their inability to strip Francis of the title, as it were. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the contractual situation that Francis is in. We're talking about his knee, because he's going to go do knee surgery, how long he's going to be out for, etc. And we're going to go from there. So if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. I don't think I said that yet, but I actually think I may be concussed. I was at jiu-jitsu and I literally smashed my head and neck. I can't think straight. I'm seeing spots and I think I might have whiplash. So if I'm repeating myself, I apologize. But yeah, so let's talk about this, right? So you got a couple things going on with Francis, right? First of all, he's getting knee surgery. He's going to be out for 9 months. So that is what it is. You've got Jon Jones sitting on the outside. You don't really know what is going on with him, because all indications were that Jon Jones was going to come in and kind of be the big draw in the heavyweight division, per the UFC, per Chael, I would assume via the UFC. And that has not materialized. And that could mean one of a few things. That could mean that Jon is still trying to bang for more money. It could mean that Jon is in a really bad place emotionally, given all the turmoil that's in his life, and he doesn't feel like now is the right time to come fight. I would certainly push back on that, dude. I mean, well, what am I talking about? That's a ridiculous thing to say. I have no idea what's going on in his life. I will say this, though. He needs to get back in there if he's going to do it, right? I mean, obviously, the greats can take a lot of time off and then come back and do well. GSP, perfect example. But man, Jon has been out for a long time, man. I mean, if he's going to do this, he's not 26. I really think he needs to hurry and do this. And I really mean that from as a Jon Jones fan, that wants to see a great version, or just as a UFC fan in general, that wants to see a great version of him come out and put on a good show so we can see what he has at heavyweight. I mean, I really would say, like, dude, get it moving, my man. But yeah, so you got that. Without Jon Jones, you got Tuivasa that looks like he's going to fight, Stipe Miocic. And this, the bottom line is the heavyweight division is a mess. I don't really know how else to say it. Like, I'm not like, I know when people say, oh, that's a mess, they mean it like as a derogatory. I don't mean it that way. I just mean like, it just is what it is, man. You have a champion who is now in a waiting period to become a free agent, which is exactly why they can't strip him, which I'll tell you about in a second. You've got the other biggest draw who knows what the hell is going on with Jon. And, the person who seems like they could have just kind of slid in there and been the champion, Francis beat him on his last fight. And so, they don't want Stipe to be the champion. Without having ever talked to anyone at the UFC, without knowing, actually, that's not true. I do know that I've said this before, I can't remember which it is, but one of those guys, the main guys of the UFC who are the big dicks over there are Dana, Sean Shelby, Mick Maynard, Hunter Campbell. And there might be some others that I'm missing, but those guys are obvious. Those guys are like really big deal over there. And one of those guys and Stipe have a legit personal problem, as I heard. I don't know that for sure. Don't anybody throw rocks at me, but I heard a rumor that he has they have a really serious personality conflict. But that's also would be irrelevant if he sold a bunch of pay-per-views, right? Like, they do not want Stipe to be the champion. But I would say in the current scenario, you don't have a lot of options, man. Like, it's a mess. It's a mess, dude. You got to get someone in there. Now, Tuivasa, that would be a great, great solution. If Tuivasa can fight Stipe for an interim belt and win, that would be a great solution. And I imagine that's exactly what the UFC is trying to do, right? But nonetheless, the situation with Francis and the reason why you can't strip him is because the only reason he's under contract currently is because of the champ clause. Okay. Like, he fought the last fight on his contract. Like, the Gone fight was the last fight on his contract. He fought his contract out. I know it's very rare that you ever hear a fighter say that when they're still in their prime. I mean, you hear like, oh, it was the last fight on their contract. And it's usually like, it's like Tyron Woodley, towards the end, or it's like, Anthony Pettis towards the end. It's not sitting heavyweight champion in his prime, but that is what happened with Francis. And the champ clause keeps him tied to the UFC. And there are all kinds of provisions like, and this is one of the things with that lawsuit, the broader lawsuit against the UFC, is they were basically stating that like the UFC's contracts make it impossible for you to ever get free. And so the things like, if they offer you a fight and you turn it down, that extends your contract by 6 months. Like if you're not injured, right? Like if they're like, here's a fight, you're like, no, I'm not taking it. Extends it by 6 months, right? Or, I heard, what's funny? I heard that every time these fighters fight in these external things, like where it's like, like submission underground or anything like that, any of these grappling things that these guys participate in, they have to ask the UFC's permission. And if the UFC grants permission, it extends their contract 6 months. So anyways, but I mean, that's something that they're volunteering for. But nonetheless, there are all these provisions that keep the guys locked in. But in Francis's case, he has an overarching clause that as of whatever it is, the end of this year, like they can't, like the contract is over at that point, no matter what, right? 5-year contract, it's over at the end of 5 years. And so the bottom line is this: until then, he's under contract under the champ clause. If they strip him, he's a free agent immediately. Okay. So that's why they can't strip him. Perfect, like, point to kind of really make this sink in. Tyson Fury says he's retiring from boxing, right? And they go, oh, does that mean you're not fighting Francis? He goes, oh no, I'm definitely fighting Francis. We're just doing it in mixed rules, with mixed martial art, or with MMA gloves and whatever, but I'm retiring from regular boxing. Then I'm going to go fight Francis. So Tyson Fury is being crystal clear. He wants to fight Francis. Now, I mean, people can say whatever they want about how this is not a good idea because, Francis is going to lose. Okay, well, he could lose in the UFC. Like he could get in there with anybody and just take a shot and lose there. But he's going to lose, or let's just say he lost to Tuivasa, got knocked out, right? Okay, so he got knocked out for how much money in that scenario? Now, if he fights Tyson Fury and he gets battered and gets knocked out, how much money did he make then? Okay, because you're literally talking about, without getting, I don't want to completely exaggerate, but you're talking like 7 to 9 times as much money that he's going to get guaranteed. And the bottom line is that the business model that the UFC has, they can't pay that much. I mean, maybe they'd be able to afford this if they were facilitating the Tyson Fury one, but that's just not their business model. Like their business model is not paying guys $40 million or whatever. That's not how the UFC works, But yeah, so anyway, people can say it's a bad idea, whatever, but I mean, it's certainly not a bad idea if you're Francis or if you're someone who is involved in his career that's going to get a commission on what, like everybody who is aligned with Francis making as much money as possible is obviously going to go fight Tyson Fury, of course. Now, I do know this though. So anyway, so rewind. So if they strip him, he can immediately go and start negotiating or talking to Tyson Fury. I don't even think they're allowed to talk to Tyson Fury yet, right? Now, Tyson Fury's made it pretty, why would they not do that fight? But I think contractually, Francis can't even talk to Tyson Fury until he's no longer under contract with the UFC, which would be in December if they don't strip him. If they strip him, he can talk to him tomorrow. So they're not going to strip him. Like, they're not going to strip him. That's not going to happen. Maybe if they come to a total impasse, and as a matter of fact, I would bet that this is what they'll do. I mean, not what they'll do, what they would do in a scenario like the following. If they get to where they're a couple weeks out or a week out or whatever, or let's actually just say a day out, and they're like, he's not signing he's not signing with us. They'll strip him. Like, they're not just going to be like, oh, our heavyweight champion, is going to fight Tyson Fury. Like, they'll strip him at that point, probably. But only if they knew they were going to lose him anyway. Because in my opinion, the closer that it gets to the deadline, the more money they're going to offer, because losing Francis is a very, very, very bad option for them. They don't the UFC doesn't lose fighters, man. The UFC does not lose fighters. That's never happened before. It's never happened before. There's never been a sitting champion that was a free agent. It just never happened before. And you could say that they changed their contracts or that this is unique, but the UFC knows how to get deals done. And I can tell you this is something I do know for 100% sure. Francis wants to be the UFC heavyweight champion. I know that for a fact. And it's super, not supersedes, but it's an important priority of his, has to do with the fact that you've got Kamaru, you've got Izzy, and you've got him as the three kings, all African champions. That matters to him. Like it's a big deal. It's not just, it's a big deal. Now, is it a big enough deal that he's going to take an insanely inferior deal? I wouldn't think so. I don't know that, no, he's not actually. He's not. But he wants to be with the UFC for that reason. So it's not like the UFC has no chance of re-signing him just because he wants to fight Tyson Fury. Like the UFC's facilitated these boxing matches before. They did the Mayweather and McGregor fight. It was one of the biggest events ever. But yeah, that's why they're not going to strip him. But the heavyweight division is a total fucking mess. So I will be, I love Tuivasa. I love the idea of him being the champion. I think that'll be so fun. And I think he'll sell, man. Anyway, that's what I got. Subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell. Peace.